Hello, it's me, Kevin. I'm here at Mary Jane's Haircut for Men. Mary Jane's Haircuts for Men. And today's wallpaper 100. Sorry, wallpaper 4. It's 4 teams, 4 players. And today we've got a group where I'm guessing at least one of these names is going to make them say, wait, he played for them? Because we got Kristen LaFlamme for the Blues, Brandon Short for the Panthers, Hector Neris for the Astros, and Anthony Lamb for the Warriors. So we're going to start in St. Louis today. Kristen LaFlamme. LaFlamme is a right shot defenseman from Quebec, 6'1", drafted 45th overall by Chicago, 1995. Before St. Louis, he bounced through the Blackhawks, Oilers, and Canadiens, and he signed with the Blues in 2001. And LaFlamme is not here because he filled up the score sheet. In fact, during his Blues career, 71 regular season games, 0 goals. But that's almost the point. The 2001-02 Blues were still a pretty good hockey team. They won 43 games and put up 98 points. Eventually, they ran into the Detroit Red Wings in the second round. The Red Wings team that went on to win the Stanley Cup, you remember? Yeah? LaFlamme was depth, a defensive defenseman. He's one of those guys who existed in the machinery of a really good team without ever becoming one of the names that anybody puts on a commemorative t-shirt. So I'm curious, do you remember LaFlamme actually playing for St. Louis? Because this is the kind of guy who can disappear from your memory completely until somebody shows you a picture of him in that blue sweater and suddenly it comes back to you. Next, we move ahead a few years to Carolina, Brandon Short. Here's another player where the resume before Carolina was actually pretty serious. Short came out of Penn State, linebacker U. There he was a 4-year starter, 2-time captain, and an All-American. He and LeVar Arrington were both Butkus Award finalists in 1999. The Giants took Short in the 4th round in 2000. After 4 years in New York, he came to Carolina. Once he got there, he played every regular season game for the Panthers in both 2004 and 2005. That's 32 out of 32. He recorded 53 tackles in 2004 and 60 more in 2005. And that 05 season puts him in one of my favorite kinds of Panthers teams. One that was just loaded with recognizable names, but also had this second layer of players like Short doing a ton of the weekly work. That Carolina team went all the way to the NFC Championship game. And Brandon Short started the season as part of that linebacker picture, while Thomas Jones was still bouncing between safety and linebacker early on in his career. Short only spent 2 seasons in Carolina before going back to the Giants for one final season. But in 2 seasons, 32 games, more than 100 tackles, that's a legitimate Panthers chapter. Now we take a pretty massive jump forward. Hector Neris. He's one of those relievers where if you only remember the biggest names from these Astros teams, he can get swallowed up just a little bit. But that bullpen doesn't win a World Series in 2022 without Neris. He came over after spending most of his career with Philadelphia, and in his first season with Houston, he threw 70 times, led the Astros with 25 holds, and then got even better when the games mattered the most. 8 appearances in the 2022 postseason, 1 earned run, 1.50 earned run average, 9 strikeouts, no walks. And he threw a scoreless 7th inning in Game 6 when Houston finished off his old Phillies team to win the World Series. There's also a neat little piece of history in there. Neris pitched the 8th inning of Houston's combined no-hitter at Yankee Stadium in June 2022. And then, somehow, he got even nastier in 2023. He got a 1.71 earned run average in 71 appearances. Opponents hit just 174. So here's my question. When you remember those Astros playoff teams, how far down the bullpen do you actually remember? Because Neris wasn't the closer. He wasn't a starter, and he wasn't any sort of headline. But he got a lot of enormous outs. Finally, the most recent of the 4, Anthony Lamb. Golden State picked him up in 2022, initially on a 2-way deal. he ended up becoming useful enough that the Warriors converted him to a standard contract in March of 23. And he played quite a bit, 62 games, 19 minutes a night, 6.7 points, 3.5 rebounds, and he shot just under 37% from long range. So those aren't numbers that jump off the page at you until you remember what his job was. Golden State needed somebody who could eat minutes, space the floor, rebound, and generally not make Steve Kerr immediately regret putting him out there. Lamb did that. He wasn't Steph, he wasn't Clay, and he wasn't Draymond. He's one of the guys making it possible for those guys to survive 82-game seasons. And I think NBA history loses those guys really fast. And think about it. How many guys from a Warriors roster just 3 or 4 years ago can you already not even picture? Lamb lasted just 62 games for them. It's not just a cup of coffee. That's most of a season. So of these four, who's the biggest? Oh yeah, I remember that guy. For you. For me, that's what Wallpaper 4 keeps turning into. Sometimes we get somebody like Christian the Flame, who played 71 games without scoring a goal. Sometimes we get a guy like Brandon Short, who was part of a deep playoff run. Then you jump almost 2 decades ahead and get a World Series champion like Hector Neris, followed almost immediately by Anthony Lamb, playing most of a season for Golden State. None of them ever had to be the face of their franchise, but they were there, they contributed, and for one day, they get the wallpaper. I'm Kevin, thanks for stopping by, thanks for sticking around, and I hope you watch another one.